Welcome to Supervisor's Report with Alameda County Supervisor Nate Miley. Your opportunity to hear directly from our local supervisor. The goal of our program today is for the public to have a better understanding of the role the supervisors play within the county government and within our state and federal government systems. I'm Assemblywoman Catharine Baker, and I'm here with Alameda County Supervisor Nate Miley. Good to see you.
Yes, it is very nice to be here.
Yeah,
thank you.
Great to visit and catch up. I just thought I would start off with Supervisor's Choice. What are some issues you'd like to make sure our viewers have on their radar screen?
Well, first of all, I'd like to say it's good to be here with you. This is my first time being here with you since Tom's passing, and
yes,
we definitely are going to miss Tom.
Absolutely, and I'm very honored to be able to play that role and get to visit, and I have big shoes to fill.
Yeah, for sure, definitely. So, but it's really good to be here at TV-30. It's been a while, and I'm looking forward to just talking about some issues today.
Great.
Yes.
Well, we have lots to talk about because county government does play a significant role in our daily lives, even if we don't know it from every single minute of our day. Now, I'm an A's fan. I hope you're an A's fan as well. You have to be. You're an Alameda County Supervisor. And we've seen a lot in the last several months about what the status of the Oakland A's are at the Coliseum. And wanted to address that with you because the county actually plays a significant role in the Coliseum. And I wonder if you can help set some context for us. We can talk about, you know, how the team is doing, but more importantly, what is the relationship between the supervisors and the Coliseum? Okay.
So the Alameda County Board of Supervisors and the Oakland City Council, both the city and the county, own the property where the Oakland A's and the arena where the Warriors used to play jointly and severally. So we own that property. So as a result of owning the property, both the county and the city have formulated a joint powers authority where we have a couple of representatives from the city and a couple of representatives from the county who serve on that joint powers authority to kind of oversee and provide guidance and hiring decisions and things like that for the management of the Coliseum and the arena property. And that includes dealing with the sports franchises.
Okay.
So we deal with both the Oakland A's, the Oakland Raiders, and formerly the Golden State Warriors.
Yep, got it. And so that is why I know you're an A's fan. You have to be. But once again, that's a critical role. And how long has the county played that role? It's from the start when the Coliseum first was built and the A's came here?
Yes, the county and the city have owned the property since its inception. And I'm not sure historically why the county decided to go into a partnership with the city of Oakland on this, but maybe back when that was set up, I think in the 60s or thereabouts, that was something the county found to be advantageous or necessary in order to have sports franchises here in the city of Oakland.
Well, I'm sure the collaboration, the resources that different levels of government can bring together and participating in the benefit that having the team there can have, not just for the city, but the county and the region and the fans, which is very important. So, well, what's been most in the news, now that we have that context of what the relationship is with this Joint Powers Authority, is what is the status of the A's in Oakland and negotiations about the Coliseum and the facility? Give us the latest, because we're very interested as eager fans.
Okay, well, there are two fronts that we're working on. The first front is because the city and the county own the property jointly, the county, for years, we have been working to get out of the sports business. You know, counties are arms of the state, and I know you know that. And so we have to provide services to vulnerable populations, and we've just found it to be a significant distraction to have to be concerned with sports franchises.
And to do it right, it would surely take a lot of time and energy and resources to do that, Yes,
and I serve on the Joint Powers Authority along with Supervisor Haggerty, and it's yet another obligation and responsibility. So we've been wanting to get out of the sports business, and we've been trying to negotiate with the city of Oakland to buy our share of the property, share of that interest. We haven't been successful in coming up with an acceptable deal. So we also said to the Oakland A's that if they were to make us an offer that we would find acceptable, we would consider selling our interest to them.
To them, okay.
And so right now where we are is the Oakland A's and the county are negotiating seriously about how we can consummate a deal with the A's so that the A's can buy our interest in the property. And at the moment, we're looking to sell it at its fair market value of about $85 million to the Oakland A's. And that's kind of where it stands at this point. We haven't consummated a deal yet. We don't have a finalized term sheet, but the county continues to work with the Oakland A's to make that happen. The Oakland A's are very eager to be able to buy our interest, because what they want to do is they want to make sure they have a home in Oakland.
And we want them to have a home here. Yes.
And in order to make it so that the A's are comfortable with having a home in Oakland, and we'll talk about Howard Terminal in a minute, if that should fall through the Howard Terminal aspect of them building a new stadium, then they would still have the ability to build a stadium on the existing property. That would be our preference, I think, from the public sector to begin with, that they just stay there and build there. But that's not their desire. So the county, we're trying to set it up so that the A's have ownership interest in the Coliseum property. So if things don't work out on Howard Terminal, they can then go back and build on the Coliseum site.
Instead of going somewhere else.
Instead of, and you know, because there's been a history of the A's threatening to leave Oakland, and over the course of time, in fact, when I was the president of the JPA a number of years ago, and we negotiated the extension, license extension with the Oakland A's for 10 years, I think that was an indication to the A's that they could comfortably work with the county and the city to stay in the city of Oakland. And so we've established that kind of that relationship, so we want to continue that. So if we can sell our interest in the property to the Oakland A's, we want to condition that on the A's would stay in Oakland. We also want to condition that there'd be some community benefits associated with that.
Sure.
We're not going to come up with all the particulars of community benefits and things of that nature. We would leave that to the city of Oakland to probably negotiate with the A's around. But we want to at least put some type of provision in that would be of concern and interest to the county. And so that's kind of where we stand presently with the A's buying our interest.
Let's talk about the Howard Terminal.
Yes. Now, the A's have an exclusive negotiating agreement with the Port of Oakland that oversee the Howard Terminal to build a stadium there. So that was their first hurdle. They've overcome that hurdle. And so now they're in the process of negotiating with the Oakland City Council to see if the city will now support a deal for a new stadium at Howard Terminal.
And can you tell our viewers, just to orient them a little bit, where Howard Terminal is?
Howard Terminal is it's in the Port of Oakland. It's near Jack London. It's not too far from Jack London, but it's near Jack London.
Jack London Square.
Jack London Square, yes, down at the Port of Oakland. And so everybody acknowledges this, there are a number of complications to building a stadium down there at Howard Terminal near Jack London.
It's right at the water base, right?
It's at the water, you've got commercial, you've got port activity, you've got the railroad. I mean, there's just so many things. There's other manufacturing businesses nearby. There's just so many things that the A's would have to overcome in order to achieve their vision. But they are bound and determined to build a stadium there. But once again, it's not guaranteed. And at the moment, where things stand is they're in conversations with the city of Oakland regarding the Howard Terminal site. And that's a separate deal from what the county's doing with them at the Coliseum.
And your interest,
Yes, because the county, we have no interest, let's say, fiduciary interest or any other type of interest in what happens at Howard Terminal, because it's all port, all city obligation and responsibility.
Got it. Well, that's very helpful to have. You know, we often just get to enjoy the games, and we certainly will read the news and get the updates on what's happening, both with the A's remaining in Oakland and at the Coliseum. But it's good to have an understanding of what the relationship is. So, just to recap, the county is working to negotiate with the A's about the possibility of selling the county's interest. Meanwhile, the A's are also very eager to pursue an opportunity to have it at Howard Terminal. If that doesn't work out, they'll have a chance, should they be able to sell the purchase the interest from the county, to be able to stay in Oakland, which we'd love to see still happen.
And build a stadium there.
Sounds good. All right. Well, we're fortunate to have the team.
Oh, for sure.
And not only as part of Oakland, but the greater East Bay community. As an East Bay resident, I'm definitely an A's fan as well. And thank you for the work that you do on that one. So.
Yeah, and one other thing I would just say, because There's a debate whether or not the county should put the property, our interest, out to an RFP and try to get more than $85 million for the for our interest, because I think the entire value of the property is like $160 million fair market.
Okay.
So if we put it out to RFP, possibly we could get more, but.
And that means somebody else could buy it.
That's exactly correct.
Okay.
If somebody else buys it, it doesn't give the A's a fallback. And from my perspective, and I think the county's perspective, we're saying it's much better to sell our interest at fair market value to Oakland A's and keep a sports team in Oakland, as opposed to not doing that and Oakland ending up having lost the having lost the Warriors, the Raiders, and then the A's, and there's no sports franchise in the city of Oakland. So we think there's a public good and a public interest in keeping the team in Oakland.
No, I would agree. And do you feel that, is this a position that the whole county has taken? You mentioned that you and Supervisor Haggerty are on the JPA. Has the county taken that same approach in general, the full Board of Supervisors?
Yes, I think the full board is in concurrence on that at this point in time. That's why we are definitely going down the path of trying to sell our interest to the A's.
Okay. And any time frame that our viewers might be able to expect? We can't know when negotiations come to a conclusion, but sometimes there are mileposts that are public out there for what are both negotiations with Howard Terminal, which again is mostly with the city, but with the Coliseum. Any information about that?
I would hope that we would be able to bring forth a final term sheet to the public for public vetting this fall, or hopefully before the balance of the year closes out.
Well, and that raises a good question. Is the public will have an opportunity to comment on this because the county is a public entity. So
and let me kind of explain that, because some folks need to understand that we can have closed session discussions, behind closed doors, confidential discussions on real estate negotiations, personnel, and legal actions. And so since this is a real estate negotiation, we're doing this behind closed doors.
The negotiations.
Negotiation. But ultimately, when we do make a final decision that, yes, we have a term sheet that we're ready to go with, then we have to bring that forward to the public so that the public can then be aware of that and can weigh in.
Perfect. Well, this is a good opportunity to be keeping an eye on that and also to take a break in our program. We'll be right back with more Supervisor's Report with Alameda County Supervisor Nate Miley. Welcome back to Supervisor's Report with Alameda County Supervisor Nate Miley. Nate, can we talk a little bit about an event that you just had? I think you convened a meeting with some of our local mayors on a pretty important topic, and that is housing and homelessness. When did this happen, and how did it come together?
Okay. Well, I wish I could take credit for convening the meeting, but it was the Board of Supervisors at the request of the mayors of Alameda County. The 14 cities in Alameda County, and 12 of the 14 cities, 12 of the mayors signed on to a letter to the Board of Supervisors basically stating they felt that we needed to have a more consolidated and deliberative discussion around the issue of homelessness in our county. So that meeting took place a few weeks ago, and it was a historic meeting because it was the very first time that the entire Board of Supervisors had met in like a public setting with the mayors of Alameda County. And it
that is surprising, given our long history.
But it also indicates the seriousness of the homeless crisis, the housing crisis in the county and throughout the Bay Area. Because for us to all convene like that, and the mayors had their, obviously the county had our administration there, and the mayors had their administration as well. So that discussion was to basically lay out the fact that there is a problem, of which everyone recognizes, and then try to discuss the county to present what we're doing to try to address it, and then the mayors also to present what they're doing, and then to see how we can come up with a coordinated, comprehensive strategy on addressing the homeless situation, the homeless crisis throughout the county, so that instead of everybody doing things, with the best of intentions, we can all get behind some key strategies and be rowing in the same direction with those strategies. Now, there is discussion and debate whether or not the county needs to spend more money on homelessness. We're putting, for instance, this fiscal year, we'll be spending about $130 million on homelessness.
And some of that comes from the state.
Yes.
And some of it comes from other sources that the county has.
Right.
Yeah.
The state, the Homeless Emergency Assistance Program, HEAP funding, we get some of that as well. And then there's additional funding for mental health and things of that nature. So, and then the cities are putting in about another 40 to 50 million. So collectively, between the 14 cities and the county, we're spending about $177 million on homelessness.
A year.
Yeah, this fiscal year.
And just in Alameda County.
Yeah, just in Alameda County.
Yeah.
So I keep saying to folks, before we look at putting more money into this, let's make sure all those dollars are out on the streets. Let's evaluate the effectiveness of those dollars, see whether or not we're getting results. And if we're not getting results, let's kind of see what we need to do to change. And so we're getting results by spending those dollars, but also let's make sure all those dollars are on the street as well.
Very reassuring to hear that, because they're often, when there's a problem, folks want to throw more money at it. And they might even want to throw more money at the same programs.
Exactly.
Let's see if they work first and what we need to improve and what's really not working. And that can be a painful decision because that might mean changing where people are and so on. So that sounds like it's going to be built into the conversation you've been having.
I am definitely pushing to make that happen for sure, because, for instance, one simple thing is it would be really good to know how many homeless encampments we have in the county and where they are.
So that's something that is a bit of an unknown.
Just for the, in Oakland, it's predicted there are roughly 100 homeless encampments.
Wow.
But if we had, with the technology that exists these days, we should be able to know where every homeless encampment is and have a kind of an ongoing report on that, so we know the census there, what services are being handled there. We don't need to know anything about the clients. We don't need to violate any laws like HIPAA laws or anything. But we
privacy
should,
laws.
yeah, exactly, privacy laws. But we should have data and statistics about what's happening at these encampments and how we can provide services there to the best of our ability, how we're moving people out of homelessness into temporary housing and then maybe into permanent housing. So make sure all the funding we're using is being used appropriately and effectively.
Good.
So that's kind of one thing that I put forth. Another thing is we have an organization called Everyone Home, which is responsible for ending homelessness.
And that, when you say we, is it a county program?
It's part of HUD, out of the coordinated entry, the funding we receive to address homelessness from HUD, Housing and Urban Development. Yes, I keep from forgetting. I need to make sure I let the audience know, because I know you know. So Everyone Home started in like 2004, and the notion was to end homelessness in 20 years. Well, that'd be 2024. So I said to everyone, we have 5 years to end homelessness. Let's look for zero homelessness. Now, we're not going to get to zero, but let's make that the goal and work back. What do we need to do from 2024 to this point in time to get to zero homelessness? So I'm hoping that's part of our approach as well. So that's kind of what we're looking at. And then if we find out that we need to put more money in, we need to complement some strategies, or we need to do additional strategies, then I think it's incumbent upon the Board of Supervisors to look to see where we can put more resources into addressing this critical crisis.
Well, it's very important that you're not only addressing an issue that's affecting daily lives and quality of life, but you're coordinating with other government entities, because homelessness doesn't know a boundary.
Exactly.
That's just not the way most of us think. And on behalf of, I think, a lot of folks in our area, very grateful. We look first at what's working. What can we be doing better before we start looking for another source of revenue? And then you find out if that is the next approach. So thank you for the work on that. In the few minutes that we have left, I'm also aware of another area that's happening in government, and that's the legislature. They are coming back later this summer from a summer recess for about 4 weeks of voting, and they're going to vote on hundreds and hundreds of bills. I always say the fur flies in the last part of session before the legislature adjourns on September 15th for the entire year. And I know that your office will keep track of a lot of bills that are happening at the state level that affect the county. In fact, I appreciated an opportunity to work with you and Supervisor Haggerty's office when bills would be coming up, so we could row in the same direction. There's some that are coming up that are very important. One, I understand, is SB, I want to get the number right, SB 58, and this has to do with the possibility of extending the hours of selling alcohol past 2 a.m. Okay, I feel the same way, but I don't want to tip the scales for you. Can you tell me a little bit briefly, in the time we have left, about that bill and what the position of the county is?
Yeah, well, the position of the county is we oppose, and it's a bill that Senator Wiener's pushing.
From San Francisco.
From San Francisco, yes. And he tried to get it through the legislature, I think a year or two ago.
Yep.
And it did get through, but Governor Brown, thankfully, vetoed it.
Yeah.
And
I also opposed it, by the way.
Yeah. So now what he's done is he's put forth the bill, and it would be applicable to certain jurisdictions like Oakland, San Francisco, I think maybe some resort communities, but there's maybe a dozen or so locations where bars could stay open to 4 in the morning, as opposed to closing at 2. They'd be open till 4. And it seems to be supported by a number of folks in Sacramento. But a lot of us, and I know law enforcement included, don't support this because, once again, even if it's just applicable to a certain jurisdiction and they can adopt that,
we're all affected by it.
People don't know any boundaries, once again. They don't just drive in San Francisco. They might go and drink in San Francisco and then have to drive home. And then we could have additional DUIs and things of that nature that could cause additional problems for our society.
And I understand the studies really have shown that accidents and incidences happen in the start, really the 1 hour before closing, and then in the hours after closing, some of the highest rates of not only traffic incidents, but real problems, crime out in our streets. And so there's been some pretty clear studies on that, and imagine pushing that further even before the commute time.
And to me, it's just mind-boggling why he would even think, Senator Wiener, we need to have bars open past 2. I mean, obviously there's an economic benefit there, but that's offset by the social cost,
and the
public health cost, public safety cost that we're going to encounter as a result of this action should the legislature pass it and the governor sign it, which I'm hoping they don't.
Because we have a new governor since the prior veto.
But he was from San Francisco, and I think he's got some ties to the industry.
He probably has ties to his hometown.
So I'm hoping it doesn't get through, and if it does, I hope he vetoes it. But I've gone on record, the Board of Supervisors has gone on record against this, and I've had a long history, even before I was an elected official, of working on responsible alcohol use and having outlets that take on their obligations responsibly, because it's a legal drug, but it needs to be regulated responsibly.
Yeah, because we are affected by others who have it. Well, I know in my time in the legislature when that bill came up, heard from a lot of constituents about it, and all across the community that understood whatever reason that might apply, and Senator Wiener's mind is a good former colleague, this is not a bill that we'd like to see happen. So we're going to keep an eye on that, because what the legislature will adjourn September 15th, and the governor has 30 days to sign or veto bills, so we might not know well into October what happens with this one. We'll be keeping an eye on it. Also, in the brief time we have left, illegal dumping.
Oh, yes.
I understand there's legislation about that as well. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, I have a few passions, and that's another one of them, illegal dumping. I hate trash, I hate litter, I hate illegal dumping. So we're working to try to get funding for law enforcement to be directly involved in addressing the problems of illegal dumping, just like we address problems with gangs and other things, because right now people dump illegally with impunity.
Yeah, it's their trash, debris, whatever it is they have.
The consequences for that are just very minimal. And so we need to step up enforcement, because quite frankly, this is another societal issue that's plaguing our communities that knows no boundary.
And this is a bill that would, is it a pilot project, or is it a bill to help fund with law enforcement the ability to crack down on it, or does it increase the fines?
Well, we tried to have that, to increase the fines, but we weren't able to get that through the legislature. This particular thing is in appropriations, and it's a pilot. It would provide additional funding so that we could hire 2 sworn officers who would just be dedicated on illegal dumping. I mean, it's not a lot of officers, but it's a start. Yeah,
and it's a problem that, again, affects public health, public safety. So, well, thank you. We'll be keeping an eye on what happens in the months and weeks to come on legislation in Sacramento. Trust me, there's always plenty that's coming out of there. In the moments we have left, any events or issue you'd like to highlight for our viewers? I want to make sure they know what they need to have on their calendars to be looking forward to.
Sure. So I try to come up to the farmers market, the Pleasanton Farmers Market, periodically. So I'm anticipating being there on August the 31st, September the 14th, and October 26th. And people can, it's kind of like office hours, just come visit and talk to your county supervisor and his staff the 31st of August, the 14th of September, and the 26th of October.
Sounds good.
And then we'll be holding our Pleasanton community meeting. The next meeting is scheduled in September, and we can let folks know the specific date and location of that community meeting.
It's like a town hall?
Yes.
Fantastic.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, great. Thank you for making yourself accessible, and this has been fun to get to do. This is our
Thank you.
inaugural time
Yes.
getting to do the Supervisor's Report together. I look forward to future ones as well. And that's it for Supervisor's Report with Supervisor Nate Miley. Stay informed about what's going on in your community with Tri-Valley Community Television. I'm former Assemblywoman Catharine Baker. We'll see you next time.